So IGN put out this tweet. We were supposed to cover this last podcast, but there was just too much going on. Isekai, one of the most popular genres in anime and manga, is now officially in the Oxford English Dictionary. However, it may not mean what you think. This was met with such opinions as, it may not mean what you think, since you're using an image from Frieren for the article. Let's jump in. So, Isekai, the popular manga and anime genre, is now in the Oxford English Dictionary. Oxford's definition of Isekai hints at a shift in the popular anime genre's original definition. According to The Guardian, the Oxford English Dictionary's latest update added 23 Japanese words to its lexicon. Included among those Japanese terms... What? Included among these Japanese terms, like is... Get rid of like.
I think it just means is, yeah.
Get out of here. Fuck off. You don't exist. Included among these Japanese terms is one of the most popular anime genres, Isekai. Oxford English Dictionary's official website defines Isekai as, quote, a Japanese genre of science or fantasy fiction featuring a protagonist who is transported to or reincarnated in a different, strange, or unfamiliar world. Is Delicious in a Dungeon an Isekai? By some definitions, it may be. While Isekai has been colloquially
it's a tough word.
No, it's only a tough word because I don't usually read it. I usually just say it colloquially. But now when I read it, I'm like, why does it feel like I'm putting extra L's in it? Colloquially, understood in the U.S. anime community. God, you guys suck at proofreading. USA anime. Understood in the U.S. anime community as a genre where a character is teleported into a fantasy world, be it through a VR device a la Sword Art Online, or vehicular incidents with a white truck. Lol. Do you consider Sword Art Online a isekai?
No, because he can't get out.
No, because he can't get out, or because he can get out?
He can't. He goes in. Well, he goes into different games.
Let's save that convo for the rest after this. But
I'm just saying,
quickly, it is interesting of a thought process because he is still in the real world. He's just in a video game.
Yeah, but then literally any time a person plays a video game that is VR, you would be like, oh, this is the part where it becomes an isekai for 5 minutes. You know, like...
yeah, I've met some people who consider it one, but honestly, thinking about it, I wouldn't consider it one myself.
So in Sword Art Online, I've never watched it. Is he stuck?
For the half of the first season, he is stuck.
What about .hack? Tsukasa is in fact stuck in it for the first season, right?
I think.
I'm just thinking like
the kid with the white hair is stuck in it.
Tsukasa. Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm trying to get my mind around this because I'm trying to challenge my understanding on it because like I used to joke like Escaflowne is in isekai, right? So is Inuyasha, depending on your terminology.
And Digimon.
Right? Yeah, Digimon. That was the next one I was going to bring up, right?
Monster
So Digimon,
but they could go
Monster
back.
Rancher. Pokemon is not in isekai.
No.
Well, I mean,
yeah, Ash is
depending on the definition.
So when the Pokemon is inside the Pokeball, it's an isekai, right?
No, I mean depending on the like if we agree that
in the episode where they go to the island of giant Pokemon, that's isekai.
No, it's all in the song. We all live in a Pokemon world.
Yeah.
So like they got to the Pokemon world.
Like, by the end of this article, if you agree that Delicious in Dungeon and Frieren are both isekai, then
I
Pokemon by definition
100%
would also be a
do not
isekai.
agree. Okay? I 100% do not agree.
You
Now,
haven't
look,
read the whole article yet.
I
Let it
haven't.
convince you.
I'm going to read it, but the argument we're making here is that people jumped the gun and dunked on IGN for using the picture of Frieren because Frieren is not, quote unquote, in another world.
I mean, to
Referring to-
play devil's advocate to the people, IGN has had massive fuck ups in the past, so probably
Yes.
people were just assuming.
But Frieren is in another world. It's just
sorry,
not.
it's just not
It
transported
is, and we'll
to
talk about
another
that
world.
after.
So let me
the
explain
article's
something
done.
here. The word isekai. Sekai is the Japanese word for world. So in Berserk, every episode starts with, in this world are the feelings of men ruled by some transcendental entity, or like that whole monologue.
Yeah.
They're saying kono sekai, right? Like sekai meaning world, right? This
Yep.
world, right? E in isekai means different, odd, strange, or different. Okay? Combining them together, it means different world. It does not mean transported to a different world. However, the concept of different world implies different from what? Right?
Yeah.
So Japan has a genre for fantasy. Get this, it's fantasy, right? So they already have a terminology similar to what we use to refer to things the way you would think of like Lord of the Rings. So for
Not
example,
set in the quote unquote real
Record
world.
of Lodoss War would be considered fantasy or fantasy, right? Not isekai, right? Now,
Okay, but hold on. So you're saying that there is a difference between isekai in the stretched definition, okay, and fantasy. They're not a one-to-one. Like Harry Potter, fantasy has nothing to do with another world. That's London. So
Yeah.
just because it's a fantasy doesn't mean it's an isekai. Even in the stretched definition of it just takes place in another world.
so what you're arguing is that isekai does not equal fish out of water.
Correct. Well, yeah, not by definition.
Because
Yeah.
Harry Potter, I would consider a light fantasy fish out of water story for the beginning of it. Right?
Sure, but fish out of water, you could be a fish out of water in Japan.
Yeah.
Right?
Last Samurai.
Like Lost in Translation.
Last Samurai is an isekai.
Or that. But so that is not the definition of isekai, right? Isekai is another world. You're not in our world.
Yeah. So the colloquial sense of the word, again, colloquially understood in the US, means character transported in another world, be it through VR, vehicular incidents, or reincarnation, right? The term has been slightly misapplied. According to the Tokyo-based Twitch streamer Selena, isekai means the story takes place in a totally different world from our real world. Meaning classic fantasy shows fans wouldn't consider to be an isekai like Record of Lodoss War, and contemporary anime like Delicious in a Dungeon and Frieren Beyond Journey's End could be considered isekai. Turns out, the anime community's popularized definition of isekai is referring to its subgenre. If it's some modern dude getting reincarnated to another world, it's called Isekai Tensei. Selena continued in the thread, saying isekai's original definition doesn't just restrict itself to a fantasy setting either, meaning sci-fi stories can technically be an isekai as well. By that logic, Square Enix 2017 action role-playing game Nier Automata was an isekai before Sword Art Online studio A1 Pictures turned it into an anime last year. Okay. This would probably explain why the popular fantasy anime Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation isn't called Mushoku Isekai. However, no, because fucking are you that stupid? However, other upcoming anime like the aptly titled Suicide Squad Isekai doesn't help clear up the anime community's ongoing confusion over the word's proper definition. Grammatical history lesson aside, the Oxford Dictionary will likely not have to immediately make an addendum to its definition on isekai. According to The Guardian, editors at the Oxford English Dictionary collaborated with researchers from the Tokyo University of Foreign Studies to define isekai and other commonly borrowed cooking-related words like katsu. This would suggest the word's original definition has shifted from its original meaning to fit with anime fans' popularized misuse of its subgenre. To be fair, isekai rolls off the tongue easier. What, then fantasy?
No, then tensei. The whole word, isekai tensei.
No. Fucker.
Yeah, that's their argument.
That is a dumb argument.
Why? Tensei means reincarnated.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thus,
which is not the same thing.
The argument is that isekai, okay, the colloquially, what I can't say the word either, definition of it requires transportation, okay, either through magical transportation or reincarnation. And so they're saying that isekai tensei is one of those two genres, transportation through reincarnation. There's another one that they don't name here that would just be transportation through magic or some other portal. And that would be another subgenre of isekai total. So there's isekai total, big circle, smaller circle, isekai tensei, other smaller circle, in the big circle, another one that would be isekai transportation.
All right, pulling up G Show.
I don't know what this is.
This is isekai. Another world, especially in fiction, other world, parallel universe, different dimension world, isekai.
Mm-hmm.
This is sekai. The world, society, the universe, sphere, circle, world renowned, world famous. Sekai. Realm governed by one Buddha. Oh. World. All right.
It's in the dictionary. Ah!
This is E. As in E, sekai. Difference of opinion. This is for the noun or not adjective.
So far, you haven't made a relevant point.
The not adjective, strange, odd, unusual. The prefix, which is what it's being used in the word isekai, means different. So it means different world. Right now,
Now
bear with me here.
Disagreed.
Bear with me here. This is the kanji for tensei. It means transmigration, reincarnation, metempsychosis in Buddhism, or it's more common, just reincarnation. So reincarnation is not the same word as isekai.
No one's saying that.
Yeah, so isekai tensei is saying reincarnated in another world.
Yes. What do you get about this? You
I
seem
don't
to be
get,
confused.
I don't get why a Twitch streamer in Japan is a valid source of definition.
You seem very confused. They agree with everything you've said so far. So why are you why are you upset? Why are you complaining? They've agreed with everything you've just said.
Because you're claiming that isekai rolls off the tongue easier than tensei, but they aren't tensei. The same word.
No, I said tensei. I missaid it, okay? I think their argument is it rolls off the tongue easier than isekai tensei. The whole word.
All right, this is the most mind-blowing thing in the entire article. If you take anything away from this article, aside from isekai being recognized in the Oxford Dictionary, of course, Nintendo in Illumination's The Super Mario Brothers movie is the second most successful isekai movie ever, coming second to Studio Ghibli's Golden Globe and Oscar award-winning film The Boy and the Heron. You're telling me that The Boy and the Heron made more money than the Super Mario Brothers movie? Because that's the most mind-blowing thing I've seen so far.
Maybe in Japan.
Maybe,
Not
yeah.
worldwide. I can't imagine worldwide.
I don't. Well, it's interesting, right? Because it's like, well, I mean, if you want to be technical about it, like every other anime it would be an isekai because it's a totally different, especially if it's fantasy, because it's a totally different world from our own.
Yes.
But like when I think of something being an actual isekai, I think we have to establish, not just from the perspective of the person watching, from the audience member, but from the perspective of the characters within the show, of it being another world. So being the
we're going to go down a path here. If you let me cook for 2 minutes.
Okay,
here.
cook. I'll let you burn the food.
Let him cook, guys. Let him cook.
All right. So words have meanings different in different situations and cultures. Okay. So the word anime, right, is originally the term appropriated from English animation, right? And it means something else in Japan than it means in English, because the term animation, you wouldn't call a cartoon. Well, I mean, you could, but it would be a slight
technically
stretch.
Could.
Yeah, but it would be a stretch. Animation.
It wouldn't be wrong, but it would be a stretch.
No, correct. It would be a slight. You would look at that person like you're using that word strange, right? Animation means like you're animating something. Cartoon is what you call the product, the media, right? Where in Japan, anime is the product. It's their word for cartoon, but they stole our word for animation to make the word anime. Then, so in Japan, right, like Frozen, the Disney cartoon, is an anime. The Simpsons is an anime. When we imported anime back into America, we stole their word for cartoon and applied it to specifically Japanese cartoons. So now we've appropriated the word back, and it's morphed from in Japan, and now it means something not completely, but also something different in America than it means in Japan, right? Because it's now no longer specifically referring to just all cartoons, it's just Japanese cartoons, or that style of cartoon, right? So this is how words morph as they get passed back and forth between the two cultures. So the word isekai literally means in another world. Therefore, you could apply that word. It actually
means different world.
That's tomato, literally. But anyway, and if you go to Google and you type it in, it just says other world, I think it is. But anyway, whatever. That's what it means. When we took it back here and we appropriated it back here to apply to the genre of anime, we applied it to specifically the anime where you get teleported to another world through reincarnation or Truckun or whatever, right? So our definition, like anime, is more narrow than the original definition in Japan. So Oxford's dictionary definition, where they just say it's a genre of anime or fiction, is correct in our colloquially understanding of the word that we stole from Japan. But in Japan, it doesn't mean that. It has a broader meaning and could be applied to more anime than what we would apply it here. And they have other words that have specific meanings to what we're talking about, like Isekai Tensei, which is a longer word, but it would be a more one-to-one meaning to our word, or the word that we stole from them, essentially.
Okay, are you done?
Does that make sense? Do we all follow? I think I'm done.
Okay, so let me ask you this. No, I don't have any questions. Let me ask you this.
You just said, let me ask you something, so that's a question.
Okay, fair enough.
He has a
don't-
point there.
I don't have any questions about your retarded take. I have a rhetorical question.
Okay.
If you were into traps, meaning you
Frieren?
were into the fetish of males pretending to be females, and
Oh dear.
and you got off specifically, your fetish is to trap porn. Is it technically true to say you love gay porn?
You're going. This is completely
It
unrelated.
is not. It is not unrelated.
How is it related?
The
At
answer
all.
to the question is yes. Technically, it is accurate to say that somebody who enjoys trap porn loves gay porn.
That's a whole other
However-
conversation.
However,
That's a whole other
the
conversation. We can
statement,
debate that till the cows come home.
No, the statement that guy likes gay porn would be disingenuous because it conveys in the mind of the person hearing it, oh, they like watching gay guys have sex. But in actuality, what they like is watching traps in sexual activities. So it is not the same thing. It is decidedly a different thing. Just because you can use the term and be technically true does not mean that it is the accurate term with which to be used.
Hold on. In your analogy, right? What the case would have to be is that the Japanese word for describing trap porn is gay porn, and then in Japan they say, "Oh, you like gay porn," and I say,
The
"No,
Japanese
I like trap
word
porn."
would be like otoko noko, and it is decidedly a different thing than gay.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that you're making an argument, well, because in America we use this word differently. First of all, the Japanese don't refer to Western cartoons as anime the way they would refer to their own stuff. They have a completely different word that prefixes it, seiyo anime, which refers to Western cartoons. First of
Well, I'm not Japanese. Okay. Disclaimer. But I've heard differently, so that's all I could say about that.
Now, the Japanese,
I've literally watched videos of people saying, "Yeah,
this
that's
is something that is so
that's
fucking annoying about Japan. And it's one of the reasons why the localizers are able to play fast and loose with the language so much, is that Japanese is a language for which, depending on how much effort you intend to put into the sentence, you could omit nearly all of the words, including things that are recognized as grammatically something that connects one word to the next. You just fucking omit it. And in context of the conversation, people will understand most of the time that the phrase you're using implies a much longer sentence or is a question depending on your inflection.
Well, I mean, I know, again, not Japanese,
Mhm.
but I do know that they have a tendency to shorten words like convenience store to conveni, or
Convenient.
animation,
Yep. Mhm.
or animation to anime, obviously, right?
Mhm.
So if there were this idea that
So
the
it's
genre
not
is
just-
actually, hold on. If the actual genre was called Isekai Tensei, they would then shorten that to Isekai, just in common speak, but mean Isekai Tensei. But that would not erase the global definition of just Isekai.
Help me to fathom then how Frieren falls into the category of Isekai Tensei.
It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
No one's arguing that.
Mm-hmm. So, once again, the purpose of language is to clearly convey ideas. You can argue that somebody likes gay porn and misconstrue the reality of the situation. Jesus, your dad is loud. You can misconstrue the reality of the situation by purposely using words that are technically true but convey an inaccurate understanding to the people who are on the periphery just hearing what you're saying. Or you can use words specifically that have a colloquial meaning that will convey the proper understanding of what you're trying to convey. Now, the thing about Japanese is not just that they shorten words, convenience store just down to konbini, animation just down to anime, right? But in reality, they will shorten the entire sentence so that instead of saying, this is my favorite anime, they would just say, favorite anime. And then the information being conveyed would be understood as, I'm talking about my favorite in this situation. Even though I don't use the whole, like Japan has the ability to use all of these different words and combine them together to make a sentence that's significantly longer and would convey to the people who are hearing that you are specifically referring to your favorite anime versus just saying the words favorite anime and it being understood to everybody in the room, oh, that's his favorite anime.
Sure. English has that too. You know, with context, you can leave out words and things. Okay.
So another example would be the word or the name, well, I guess it's technically a word now, Nimrod. Historically, Nimrod was a hunter in the Bible. In Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny refers to Elmer Fudd as Nimrod as an insult, mocking him as being some great hunter, right? But in a sarcastic, mocking way. But to the people in the audience, they hear Nimrod and don't know that it is the name of a person from the Bible, and that term becomes synonymous with idiot, even though it actually means like effectively great hunter. Like referring to somebody in the gym as Arnold Schwarzenegger would be like a compliment. Like look how jacked they are, right? But if you don't know who Schwarzenegger is because you're in a part of the world that doesn't get access to his movies or know any of his history, and you were saying it to somebody who couldn't even bench the bar, the term would take on a different meaning.
Sure.
So that is regardless of what isekai may have at one time meant. And I still disagree. I do not think Selena is correct there.
Okay, but she's actually in Japan.
I don't think it makes a difference. I think it is significantly more likely that IGN misunderstood the Japanese being spoken by Selena instead of Selena correctly.
She was actually speaking in English on Twitter. Well,
there you go. So I think it is significantly more likely because Japan already has terms for the genre that would be like Record of Lodoss War, Frieren, or Delicious in a Dungeon.
Berserk, like
it literally. Well, I mean, dark fantasy.
Yeah,
might have a slightly
by Random's definition, it is a isekai because
no, but hold on.
Berserk is an isekai.
You used the term earlier, okay? Fish out of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just because we have one term to describe a genre of media, then we have to throw out, or we have to say that clearly no other term could exist. Why use fantasy when we could use
saying that the terminology classification, we choose to use the term that best conveys, right? That's why you would not say, if you were trying to explain a character in a show that has a thing for traps, you wouldn't say, that guy's gay, because it conveys to the person hearing it something completely different than they prey on traps.
Okay, but it wouldn't convey something completely different in this case. It literally in Japan, it literally means in another world. So
It does not mean in another world. It literally means different world. And the
another world,
connotation
whatever.
there is different from what?
This world.
Yes. So in the context, the reason you would use fantasy or fantasy as they would pronounce it
But
in Japanese.
fantasy doesn't imply another world. You can have fantasy without another world. Like Harry Potter. They're not synonymous.
Okay, name 5 more examples than Harry. I mean, I can't really think of any other fantasies.
So yeah, obviously there's going to be varying
Uh,
degrees.
uh,
I personally would not consider Harry Potter
A
this-
Disney movie with the magic guy,
Oh,
like
Lord.
there's tons of movies.
The
that
Sorcerer's
have,
Apprentice. Don't you know anything? Like,
yeah, there you go. That's the one. There you go.
no, but seriously, just
A bunch
okay,
of medieval ones.
Let's
like,
say The Simpsons or like Grand Theft Auto, for example. Grand Theft Auto takes place, or even let's say DC Comics, right? Gotham doesn't actually exist. Neither does Metropolis. They are stand-ins for like
Chicago and New York.
in New York, right? In Marvel, Spider-Man swings around actual New York.
Yep.
Right? So just in we've got a very similar premise of superhero companies, right? One of them chooses to do things in the real world. The other one chooses to do things in a fictionalized version of the real world. But
it is
but
still
nobody
planet Earth.
nobody is going to describe DC Comics as an isekai
Because it's not.
except in Suicide Squad isekai.
Yes,
Because
it's not. That's why they would never do that.
superhero is a better descriptive for what genre it is.
No.
Instead of fucking fantasy. Are you kidding me?
They would never describe it as an isekai because it's not. It's still planet Earth. It's just a fictitious town.
How is that any different from Harry Potter?
What do you mean? Harry Potter isn't an isekai either. It literally is in London.
Okay, how is it different? How is Berserk? How is that an isekai? It's in a different world.
No. We're not getting
It's
past
literally
this.
in a different world. So it's an isekai.
No,
No, it isn't.
So you're arguing.
Describe Berserk as an isekai.
You're mixing up
arguing-
isekai and fantasy as if they're synonyms, but they're not. Harry Potter is a
I'm
fantasy.
not crazy, right? He's continually switching his argument.
No,
depending-
I haven't switched my argument once. Harry
So-
Potter is a fantasy. Just
No.
because
Again,
how is Harry Potter not a fantasy?
it's not that it's not a fantasy, the same way that it's not technically untrue that a person who faps to trap porn is getting off to gay
You're
porn.
so hooked on this. It's
Because it's a good example.
no, it's not.
It's an excellent example. You're just uncomfortable with it.
Okay, what would you call Harry Potter then if it's not a fantasy?
Harry Potter is a wizard and like wizardry story that
Oh
features
my-
light fantasy elements
So it's a
in
fantasy.
a real world setting.
Yes. Thank
So yes, the word fantasy would
So
be
it is a
used,
fantasy
but
and
it
it is
is
not an isekai.
accurate to use it as the sole descriptive term for the genre.
It would be. What are you,
What
what
yeah,
are you
what about
talking
Berserk?
about?
Like, I mean, I none of us here would consider Berserk an isekai.
Okay,
I mean, it's
So-
an isekai when the eclipse occurs.
the colloquial I can't say the word.
Colloquial.
Yes, that definition. Yes, I agree with you, Greenline. It wouldn't fit our definition of isekai, right? But this stretched definition that is the original Japanese meaning, in theory, it would fit.
in my argument.
Yeah, in my-
Asterisk.
So like, what about like I mean, so we wouldn't consider Berserk an isekai. What about Tenchi Muyo? Like that's he goes
I
to
don't
other
know that one.
planets. He goes to other planets, so that's
Yeah,
other
see,
worlds.
this is the thing. It's like, so is the movie The Martian about Matt Damon being stuck on Mars an isekai, according to your definition of the word, Random Line?
I mean, in a stretch definition, possibly. I
So
don't,
look,
that
you
one.
could stretch
No,
words
hold on.
any length you want to make them
Hold on.
fit.
Yeah. Okay, so there's this whole like, what is a sandwich? What is a soup? Right? What is a salad?
Mhm.
And where does one food become a soup or a salad? Is cereal a soup? Okay, what if you eat it without the milk? Right, then it becomes a salad. So there, obviously, when you're categorizing things, there is a fuzzy line. They're not strict definitions.
Why didn't I
So
think of that before? You're right. Once you add ranch dressing, a salad does in fact become a bowl of cereal. Yes, totally.
I never said that. The point is, if you drown the salad in ranch dressing, at some point it becomes a soup. That's the point. Like you keep getting the wrong. You keep coming to the wrong conclusions here. Like
Cereal is soup. Gotcha.
with milk, it could
This
be
is
class.
not an argument. I want to.
Yeah, this is not. We should just get off this topic. We're gonna sit here for 2 more hours
Old
arguing
man
over.
says, "How did we
Before
get
we
from the
ever
definition of
vote-
isekai to art trash game?" I think you understand.
I
think you
before we
understand.
go beyond the point of no return of tearing this family apart, let's move on to a different topic.
So I wholeheartedly, I understand the point.
You
IGN
do
is
not
attempting to
understand.
make. No, I fully do. I just disagree with the premise because
Uh-huh.
I don't believe historically.
You're also not Japanese, and we're not arguing that the English North
fucking
American.
deal, neither are you.
No, I'm not. I'm taking this Japanese streamer's word for the fact that,
And I'm arguing that is a mistake.
logically, like the literal definition of the
All right.
word.
Somebody buy me. Somebody do some research. We're gonna find out the oldest Japanese dictionary that contains the word isekai, and we are going to character by character translate it on stream.
What would that solve? That would solve.
It would
nothing.
make you wrong.
No, it wouldn't. It would. How? Unless the
Because it's
definition
gonna
turned out
say
to be.
in big bold Japanese letters, not to be confused with fantasy.
I'm not saying it's a synonym for fantasy. What don't you get about that? They're different things. Like, Jesus Christ.
Explain to me how they're different.
Harry Potter is bring up my fucking chart. Bring up my chart. Bring it up.
This amazing chart.
Fantasy is this overarching thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue that there could be some isekai that don't fit in fantasy, but for this argument, I'm going to say most of them would. Okay, so the fantasy can cover fantastical stories that both take place in our world and in another world, and so things like Harry Potter, The Magician's Apprentice fall in not another world. That would not be an isekai, but it would still be a fantasy.
Especially
Therefore,
because it's called Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Therefore, it is by definition not a synonym. A synonym is a word that means that two words mean the same thing. They can be swapped out. So I'm showing you.
Okay.
It is
so
not.
Help
the
me
same
understand.
Word.
Help me understand how a fantasy setting like Record of Lodoss War would be considered an isekai.
Does it take place on planet Earth?
It takes place in the land of Lodoss.
That's
That's
another
amazing.
world. So we go to our little checkbox thing here and we say, does it take place in another world?
Okay.
Yes.
Does
It's an isekai.
is Game of Thrones an isekai?
Yes.
Yes. By this definition, it would be yes.
By this definition, I don't.
Well,
Yeah,
I have to say that all of these because he keeps thinking that I'm talking about fantasy for some reason, and they're being very clear. I
okay. Is
told you at the beginning.
Naruto?
Okay.
Is
Hold on.
Naruto
Yeah.
Is
an
Grand
isekai?
Theft Auto
No,
an isekai?
no, takes place.
So how come a fantasy that takes place in a fictional medieval setting with stories based on actual European history is considered an isekai, but a contemporary setting with fucking aliens and Bigfoot and all sorts of fantastical things that takes place in an alternate version of the United States is not considered an isekai by your definition.
So this is what I was saying by there's fuzzy definitions, right? Is a medieval story an isekai? That would be a fuzzy definition because for me personally, okay, other people might have other opinions on that, but for me personally, that would be a fuzzy definition because yeah, it is in a completely different world, but if it's still on Earth, then is it another world? Yeah, it's still Earth. So that could be debatable.
So in Berserk, Kono Sekai, it takes place on Earth, right? No. Therefore, is it or is it not an isekai based on your definition?
Okay, so to be fair, I've only watched the anime. I haven't read the book. So I don't know. Does it take place on Earth? It takes place on an Earth-like planet.
Mm-hmm. But nobody's looking at it and thinking, oh yeah, this takes place in the same universe as Earth, but it's on another planet.
I don't. Has it mentioned where they are? Like any landmarks that are recognizable?
No, it's exactly like fucking Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
It takes place in Midland. Like
okay, and I said Game of Thrones isn't it would be an isekai in this definition.
Okay, so Game of Thrones, but there's no dragons. Still an isekai?
Midgar or whatever. Yeah, it takes place in a world that has like a winter for like 10 years.
Okay, Game of Thrones, but all the cities are actually named after real European cities. Is it still a fantasy or still a isekai?
Well, I mean, like I said, we're not strict lines here. We're blurry. So you could blur it into the sunset and eventually you'd cross that line. I don't know where that line is. It's not a hard line.
Stan also agrees that your arguments are stupid.
It's not soap or salad. It's soup.
What are you, insane? It's stupid salad, idiot.
Soap is completely different.
Honestly,
soap is not a food.
I honestly think we need to get out of here because it's
we need to end. We need to end.
We're gonna sit here for 2 hours arguing with Random 11.
Who's the
insane
person? Who's the insane person here? Is it the person? Is it the person who thinks that gay sex is the same thing as trap porn? Or is
I didn't say that. I don't agree with that analogy.
What's wrong about it though? It fits your definitions.
No, it doesn't. Not really.
All right.
So okay, if we want to finish up this thing, basically that was the article that IGN put out, and if you go back to the tweet, they community noted the tweet, although the community note still didn't mention shit all about what the actual article was about. Whether or not you agree,
says isekai is a genre where a protagonist who is transported to or reincarnated in a different, strange, or unfamiliar world. Stan, what are your thoughts on this? Is the original usage of the word isekai synonymous or somewhat similar to the word fantasy in that it could apply?
That is not the argument at all. What the hell? That's not the argument.
I still don't understand. Literally, you're saying fantasy in another
Yes.
world, not another world. Okay, great.
Yes.
Those fit under fantasy. But what you're
Yes.
actually saying here is that isekai is right here. That's what in another world means to you. I don't
Yes.
understand what you're trying to prove with your testicle albuginia cross section over here.
I don't know how this is hard for you to understand. There are fantasy stories that take place in another world, and there are fantasy stories that do not take place in another world. And so some of them are isekai and some of them are not isekai. Therefore, they're not synonymous. That has
So
never
how-
been the argument.
How fantastical is The Martian?
And I said earlier that
Considering we haven't
could
gotten
be-
a man on Mars, the entire thing is fantastical.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no atmosphere on Mars, or not enough to cause a big storm like that. So, that was ruled out as not scientifically possible. But anyway,
All right.
so
I get it now. So what you're saying is isekai refers to any story that couldn't happen in real life.
no,
Yeah,
so
Dragon
you
Ball.
could-
Dragon Ball is a great
Hold on.
isekai, guys.
Dragon Ball is technically an isekai.
It would be.
Goku
It would
is
be.
a Saiyan.
It's not on
So
planet. Earth.
Astro Boy was the first isekai.
The first
I don't know.
anime was an isekai. Huh?
I never watched Astro Boy. But okay, so yes, I agree with you. You could take that in another world thing and move it half in and half out of fantasy. So there could be non-fantasy isekai movies potentially.
It's called
All right.
reverse isekai.
We're
What's
giving
reverse
Stan a
trap?
headache apparently. But yeah, so fine, we could correct the little Gantt or what are these stupid things called?
Venn diagram.
Venn diagrams, yeah. We can update the Venn
Doesn't
diagram
even
so
know
that,
the name of his own damn diagram.
so that in another world could be half
Update
in
his
and half
cross section. which was fantastic.
The saddest part about this is he believes he's making perfect sense.
Yeah.
You're the one that keeps changing the argument. Like, you
Random
don't get the
11,
argument.
I encourage you not to lose your current job and have to interview for a new job.
That was low. That was low.
Don't quit your
Hello.
day job.
No, there's other meanings behind.
When they
that.
ask
That's
if you're a
low
good
blow.
communicator, I'm going, and you put me down as a reference, I'm going to share this podcast clip with them.
They're just gonna see that your reference is meaningless because you don't know
Have
what
you guys-
synonymous means.
Have you guys watched Sunny in Philadelphia? It's that meme where the guy's got all that like papers and strings put up with all the
Yeah, Pepe Sylvia.
conspiracy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
It's
all
a
right.
conspiracy.
So go back,
Alright.
go back to the tweet. Okay. Well, anyway, whatever. The
Here's the tweet.
IGN put out the tweet, and no one, and that thing doesn't mean anything because they didn't actually understand what IGN was saying.
Let me burst
And
your bubble.
no one in the Twitter
Somebody at IGN,
replies did either.
Isaiah Colbert,
Hmm.
thought to themselves, man, you know what would get us a ton of fucking hits and get IGN to start trending? If I tricked people into giving us engagement by making an article deliberately to bait people into commenting about how wrong I was. Because to get a question answered on the internet, you do not ask the question, you post the wrong answer. And then everybody's like, you fucking retard, right? And that got them article of the month and a temporary pay raise because they realize how to weaponize otaku in order to monetize them, right? That's what happened. Okay, they drunkenly watched a Twitch streamer stream of consciousness set of tweets and thought, I bet I could weaponize this in my favor. And that's what we're experiencing.
Well, it worked, I
Playing
guess.
their own hands, Randy.
Let me show you this other article where IGN asked, is trap porn gay porn? All right.